those black-eyed kids should be arrested. I don't care if they're supernatural entities. I don't care if they're vampires. They should follow the law. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Due to popular demand, I am doing another black-eyed children video. But before we get started, I'm Sophia Lovelace and I post about ghosts, schools, anything creepy and cool. So if you like any of that stuff, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when I have new uploads. Also, when you're down there, make sure to hit the bell icon so you're one of the first people notified when I have a new upload. So there is a few things that I need to get out of the way before I get into these black-eyed children stories. And yes, this is my third video on the black-eyed children because you guys tend to really like them. You tell me in the comments how much you like them. You guys give them more likes and they are showing up more when you search them into YouTube. So this is a good indicator that you guys really like stories about the black-eyed children. And I don't mind making videos about black-eyed children because I love them too. Well, I mean, I'm kind of freaked out by them. So it's kind of like a love-hate relationship between me and the black-eyed children. And another thing I wanted to disclaim was that 2 videos ago, I did reach the milestone of 100 videos on my channel. Now, not all these videos are paranormal because if you've followed me for a while, I've only been doing paranormal videos since January of 2020. But a lot of them are paranormal videos, and the reason I wasn't able to mention that it was my 100th video in my 100th video was because I pre-recorded that one and then I wasn't planning on posting it. And then the next video I was planning on talking about it, and that was the reason why I created that video, and then I ended up just forgetting to talk about it. Anyways, that is enough rambling. Let's get into these black-eyed children stories. So we're starting to get towards the end of black-eyed children stories that I can find easily on the internet. So I'm thinking next of doing a video of subscribers share their black-eyed children stories. So if you want to leave your black-eyed children stories in the comments down below, and I'll leave you a shout out if you want, or you can remain anonymous. Just make sure to leave that in the comments, or message me on Instagram or something like that, because I think that might be a good way to do it next time. And then also you guys get involved and it's kind of a way of saying thank you. Let me know if that sounds like a good idea, doing a subscriber's black-eyed children stories. So let me know in the comments down below. So this is the first one on this list, and let me tell you, it's pretty terrifying. And this story is titled Children in the Snow. In January 2016, a woman in Vermont made the tragic mistake of letting 2 black-eyed children into her home. A blizzard was raging outside when she heard a faint knock at her front door. A boy and a girl stood there, shivering, begging to use her phone. Unnerved by her presence, the woman nevertheless let them in and went to retrieve her phone. After the children walked into the light of the family room, the woman realized their eyes were completely black. As she stared at them in horror, her husband's nose began to bleed at the same time that the power suddenly went out. After what felt like an eternity, the children spoke in unison, saying that their parents had arrived. The woman watched as the 2 quietly left her house and entered a nondescript black car with a man in a black suit. Not long after the strange encounter, the woman's husband was diagnosed with severe skin cancer. The woman began to suffer from regular nosebleeds and a bunch of other medical issues. She's convinced her failing health, along with her husband's, is a result of the black-eyed children she unwittingly let into her home. Now that story is pretty spooky for several reasons. Now, if you've watched my 2 other videos on the black-eyed children, you know that it is super rare for someone to have survived the black-eyed children coming into their home. Normally, some people have reported that the black-eyed children tried to kill them or take their brain or something crazy like that. So it seems very strange that the children actually came into her house for a short amount of time and then their parents showed up. And this is a very unique story for that reason as well, because I don't think I've ever encountered a story where their parents have shown up. Story number 2, all work and no play. In 2010, a man encountered two black-eyed teenagers outside of his place of work. It was an ordinary July night in Ohio, and the man was in the middle of a night shift. Craving a cigarette, the man stepped outside the building and noticed two teenage boys across the street. As he smoked, he realized that the boys were staring at him. Weary, the man returned to the safety of his cubicle and tried to refocus on his work, only to see through the security cameras that the boys had appeared in front of his building, motioning him to come outside. Fed up, the man went to the door, contemplating whether or not he should call the police. As if they read his mind, the boys insisted that not such an action would be necessary. All they needed was to use the phone. The man refused. He watched in horror as one of the boys continued to stare up at the security camera while the others ventured to the back of the building, watching the cameras as if they could see what the man was doing. Nervously, the man contacted the police, watching the teenagers on the video feed the entire time. When the officer arrived on the scene, he could not locate the teenagers anywhere, despite the fact that the man never tore his eyes away from the video feed. Now, this is a pretty believable story because if you've seen my other videos or if you've heard stories of the black-eyed children, they have a habit of vanishing or just disappearing, or you look away for a second and you look back and they're completely gone. Now, this of course makes people theorize what they could be. They could be aliens using teleportation. They could be time travelers. Now, this one is one of my favorite stories about the black-eyed children. I have read this one before, but I'm pretty sure that I have not included it in a video before. And this story is called The Boy by the Truck. On March 17th, 2008, a 12-year-old boy had a bone-chilling experience in an outlet parking lot. While waiting in his mother's truck for his mother to finish getting a haircut, he saw a boy walking across the parking lot. Thinking it was a friend from school, the boy banged on the window until the other boy turned. Realizing it was not his friend, and the boy in the truck watched in confusion as the strange kid walked up and stared through the window. The boy caught one glance at the other boy's solid black eyes and knew that he was staring at the face of evil. "You must let me in," the black-eyed boy demanded. After several minutes, the black-eyed boy finally disappeared. When the boy's mother returned to the truck, she informed her son that the black-eyed child had come into the salon demanding for the keys to her vehicle. Thankfully, the boy's mother did not give in. Now, that story is always interesting, and especially how people write the story. I've seen it written in various different ways. They make it sound like the mother would reasonably give the keys over to a kid who just randomly starts demanding that he gets the keys to her cars. Like, if anyone came up to me, it doesn't matter if the kid, doesn't matter if it's an adult, if a random person comes up to me and asks for the keys to my car, I'm saying no. There is no hesitation in that. Yes, it would be weird, but there is no way I'm giving into that. The next story is called The Ones That Got In. On November 19th, 1992, a man was watching Evil Dead with his wife and his children were sound asleep in the rooms upstairs. It was 1:30 a.m. when he decided to head to bed after the movie was over. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on his front door, and what stood behind the door would change his life forever. There stood a boy and a girl, 8 and 11 years old, who never looked up and were standing barefoot in the Michigan winter. Despite his anger, the man allowed the children to enter and allowed them to use the phone to phone their parents. But when he went to lend them the phone, they were gone. In the dead silence, he heard a scream coming from one of the upstairs bedrooms. Now, the next story is pretty graphic and kind of like theatrical and over the top, but essentially what happened was these black-eyed children murdered his wife, and he went upstairs and found the two children smiling with blood covering them. Now, this story is interesting because I want to know what happened after this. Did he call the police? Hopefully he called the police. Those black-eyed kids should be arrested. I don't care if they're supernatural entities. I don't care if they're vampires. They should follow the law. The next one is called Did the Cat Go Away? In early November 2012, a woman was up late watching a movie with her cat when suddenly it leaped off her lap. The woman was left stunned as she followed her cat into the laundry room, but the cat refused to leave from its spot between the machines. Suddenly, the woman heard knocks on the door and figured it was just late-night trick-or-treaters. Or late trick-or-treaters. I was about to say, I'm like, if it's November, they're pretty late for Halloween. However, there was something strange about the children, who just stood there looking into her house. They weren't wearing costumes or holding any buckets. Because like I said, if they're trick-or-treating in November, they're pretty late. Then the girl whispered to the woman, "We need to get inside." The boy was staring at her and grinning. Feeling fearful, she noticed that their eyes were completely black. The woman shut the door and called the police. The police only found footprints that led to the forest behind the woman's home. It wasn't until months later that the woman found a makeshift bed in her gardening shed. Now, was it just me, or was there a lot of rhyming words in that story? Such as, the cat suddenly leaped off her lap, and a makeshift bed in her shed. I don't know why, but there's a lot of rhyming in this story, and I don't know if that adds to its credibility or not, but that's just something I wanted to point out when I was reading this story, is that I felt quite disturbed by the excessive use of rhyming words. Is that completely independent from the point of the story? Probably. But am I still gonna leave it in this video? Probably. Now, the final story is titled, Not in the Middle of Nowhere. On Thanksgiving 2015 in suburban America, a woman was enjoying the holiday on her own in her house when she heard a knock. It was around 7:30 p.m. when she heard a knock on the door. Believing it to be her neighbors, she opened the door without looking. However, there stood two boys outside of her door with an eerie stance. They avoided any eye contact but kept insisting to enter the house. The woman became hesitant, which is when the older of the two boys became persistent. It is here that they finally looked up and the woman noticed that their eyes were completely black. She shut the door on them and they continued to knock on the door. Eventually she fell asleep during the early morning with the lights on and the TV playing. But when she awoke, she found the lights turned off and the TV was black and white static. She suspects that there had been someone or something in her home that night. So how do you guys feel about that story? I personally think it's pretty believable. I personally think it's very creepy, especially since imagine just falling asleep knowing you left the TV on and waking up to find that it's all staticky. Is just ugh. Considering we know from, I believe, the first story on this list is that the children that the woman let into her home and her husband got a nosebleed, that they affected the electricity. Now, does this change your theories and opinions on the black-eyed children? If they can alter electricity, do you think that that changes your theory on them? Do you think that this means that they're aliens? Does this mean that they're demons? Make sure to leave your thoughts down below. I would love to read them. I love hearing your stories and your thoughts about the black-eyed children. That's it for my video today. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, I highly recommend watching some of my other paranormal content that I have on my YouTube. I will leave links to playlists down below. If you like this video, make sure to please give it a thumbs up. And if you are not subscribed already, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when I have new creepy videos. Also, when you're down there, make sure to hit the bell icon so you're one of the first people notified when I have a new upload. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and